Dog culture is like communism, part 2. For this one, we're going to go over to Eugene, Oregon, and look at Oregon small farms. So, this is happening all over Oregon. It's all about water rights. So, small farmers are having lots of trouble because they get their farms shut down and they're told that they're violating the law because they're irrigating their food, their crops. So, please do have a look at this article on your own. I'm just going to go over it pretty briefly. But this is young lady Del Campo. She's had this farm for a few years, but now she has a violation and she has to shut down her operation. An interesting side note as I look at these things, the mainstream politicians and celebrities and everything else, they talk about toxic masculinity and you need to start supporting women's roles in society. Yet they will shut these women farmers down over these water rights. And this will make more sense later on in the video too. So here's the part about the double standard. So you can use 5,000 gallons a day for commercial or industrial purposes, but not for irrigation. And so Del Campo says she was only using 1,000 gallons a day to irrigate. And so it's a double standard. It's like they can use all this water for other purposes, but not for growing their own food and building their own wealth. So this is kind of like communism. It's like the government telling you, look, you want to spend your resources, you can go do it on this, but not on your farm. And this just is not like some happenstance thing. They use aerial photography and complaints from neighbors to go after these people. And this is mentioned in many, many other videos and first-hand accounts that I've had a look at. I'll put some links in the description if you want to have a look at this stuff more. Another big part of this is the information is just not out there. Some of these people that want to do farms, the people that work for the city and the county, they don't really know. They don't know what to tell them, so they just go ahead and they start their farms. And then later on, they get all this enforcement that comes down on them. And Oregon continues to spend more money on staff to enforce these violations, but they're not spending the time and money to educate people on all of these rules. All of these violations happen, and then the people are confused and they don't understand what they did wrong. They've been operating a successful business for a while, and all of a sudden they're in trouble. So doesn't it seem like they should be spending some money on, instead of all this enforcement to take stuff away from people, how about education and stuff like that? So here's how this ties into dog culture. If these people took their property and they went and got a bunch of rescue dogs, shelter dogs from other states that come across state lines on jets, Oklahoma, California, Texas, all these stray dogs, rescue organizations bring them into Oregon, that uses a lot of water. And then they put dogs on properties like this and they just allow it. It's totally fine. I think that's what they call the commercial use. They will use all this water on dogs, but not allow farmers to use it. If this lady went out and got a bunch of these shelter dogs, they could urinate, defecate all over. Tons of money would be used to give these dogs water. The dogs could be washed. They would be in this house back here washing the dogs in the little tubs and in the shower, using all of that water for dogs. But when a farmer wants to use that water to irrigate their crops, that's a big problem. So that's communism. When you tell people they can't grow crops, but they can have tons of water to wash a bunch of dogs, that's communism. So let's do a little bit of our own aerial photography. So we're over in Eugene, Oregon, and we're looking for doggy daycares. They're everywhere. All of these facilities use tons and tons and tons of water to clean up after these dogs, fill up little kiddie pools for these dogs. Thousands and thousands of gallons of water are used for all of these facilities for dogs. Let's just go look at one of them. Here we are. We're at the Lucky Dog Daycare. Yep, tons of water use. They got these pools that they fill up. These pools have several hundred gallons of water in each one, and then they let the dogs jump around to cool off. All this water for dogs that are nothing more than an expense and liability. But what about the farmers? This is communism. You can spend your money spoiling dogs and go broke and just have a bunch of spoiled dogs that use water all day, but we better not catch you growing any food on your property. Okay, how about Eugene, Oregon dog parks? Look at that. All over the place. Everywhere. You know, these dog parks, they all have to have irrigation. They have to have sprinklers. They have to have the free doggy bags for the dog owners. You know, the dog owners that feed their dogs top of the line science diet and raw meat. You gotta have tax money buying doggy poop bags for all these dog owners. And there's tons of these parks. Irrigation for all of this landscaping and stuff where these dogs defecate and urinate. So, how much of our city, county, federal water allocation resources go to all of these freaking dog parks? It's got to be millions of gallons. But hey, that's what the government says you're supposed to spend your money on. Don't go building your own wealth and creating a farm. Go spend your money on dogs. Okay, now we looked up dog boarding. Plenty of those places too. You know, these places go through a lot of water. They got to clean up after the dogs. They got to give the dogs water. Look, all over the place. Here's a kennel that's right next to Fern Ridge. So what do we know about dogs? They defecate everywhere and they can cause algae blooms. Interesting. So we're right there by Fern Ridge Lake. And now you know all these people with their dogs that hang out on all of these parks. You know they're letting their dogs urinate and defecate everywhere. So while we're looking at Fern Ridge Lake, let's look at something else. Cyanobacteria advisories. If you go back through time, these toxic algae blooms, they get worse and worse every year. That's weird because dog ownership gets higher every year. And dog feces is a huge driver of these algae blooms. Interesting. So all this water that has more and more algae blooms, you're going to be fine with that. You're going to be fine with all the dog feces runoff going into that lake, but you're not going to let people have farms. Okay, now we're back in Eugene and we went ahead and looked up dog grooming on the map. Oh yeah, lots of dog grooming going on here. So you know that this is water use. This is hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water use every time these dogs get groomed. Not to mention all of the hair, the dander, the particles that can cause groomer's lung, an emphysema-like disease from breathing in the particles off of dogs. All of these places, they're washing dogs with water. Water that goes into the city sewer and waste system and has to be handled. Look up something called biomass. Biomass is when the solid particles from the sewer system get reused as fertilizer. And a good portion of that is dog hair, dog dander, and other nasty dog stuff from people washing these dogs all the time. Not just at the dog grooming places like all these, but at their houses too. So again, water for all of these dogs. But, don't let that lady grow blueberries and garlic. We can't have that, can we? Let's look up one more place in Eugene, Oregon. We got the Green Hill Humane Society right here. So, do you think this facility uses a lot of water? They got to give those dogs water. They got to spray down those kennels because those kennels are full of feces and urine and other stuff that comes off the dog, including menstrual shedding and other particles that go into the city wastewater drain and also, off into these grassy areas. And then it rains, and then, guess what is not too far away? Fern Ridge Lake and these waterways too. So yeah, no problem blowing through thousands and thousands of gallons of water for a dozen different type of dog spoiling facilities and other businesses. But you're not going to allow your fellow citizens to grow food for themselves. That's dog culture and that's communism. Dog culture is just like a form of communism. So that has been our little trip to Eugene, Oregon to look at how dog culture is part of communist type things being done to our citizens. What do you guys think about all this? Do you think that these dogs should give up some of this massive amounts of water that they use and that we should somehow allocate some of that water to some of these farms? Do you think that's fair? Do you think putting all these resources into shutting these farms down and increasing enforcement is worth our time? aerial photography to shut these farms down? How about aerial photography to find all these dog owners that allow their dogs to kill and maim fellow citizens? I think that would be a better thing to be putting our effort of enforcement into. What do you all think?